And welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. I'm Juck. That's Marc Givler joining you from Buckeye Huddle. How we doing, Marc?
Doing great. I'm excited to start doing these with you regularly. I know we've talked about this a lot the last few weeks, and again, just it's exciting because the season's coming, but it's always good to talk about recruiting, even when the season's just about to start.
Absolutely. It's never a bad time to talk recruiting. I wish there was some more going on right now, but there's always plenty to talk about, including today, LaDainian Guyton, who is one of the, honestly, we've seen some freaky edge players. Like this guy might take the cake to me for one of the top 5 freakiest I've ever seen. A kid out of Georgia, and he is committed to Texas Tech. He's going to be making $1.2 million year one, and that's going to escalate as we go. Thoughts on that, Marc?
Texas Tech's got the money cannon loaded, and they are firing at will.
As a Buckeye fan, my initial reaction to that is anger. And then I think, wait a minute, this is a kid who probably would have gone to Georgia. Felix Ojo probably would have gone to Texas. Do I really care that much? Because Texas Tech isn't a competitor. Maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't be bothered by this.
Yeah, and look, Texas Tech's got some expectations this year. We'll see if they can live up to them. They're certainly trying to make themselves a national title or playoff type contender. That's their stated goal with all the money they're throwing around right now. Until they, provide some type of proof of concept on that, I think anytime that an elite talent, either whether Ohio State's recruiting them or not recruiting them, anytime an elite talent goes to Texas Tech instead of Texas or Georgia is probably a good thing for Ohio State.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's interesting, though, the way we've seen kind of the last couple of years. It felt like there was maybe a hesitancy from a lot of those top tier players to just blatantly kind of take the biggest bag. There was a little hesitance from their families, from their parents, a stigma to it, so to speak. That stigma's gone. Anybody can get anybody. We've got Houston, Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and Maryland all sitting with a 5-star in their class. It's a straight up contract negotiation for a lot of these guys at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. There's not. I think there are guys out there who will take a slight discount if it's a better program, if it's a better location, whatever it might be. But yeah, we're not seeing guys. If we're talking a 6-figure difference, or in some cases, multi 6-figure difference, we're not seeing a lot of guys maybe look at development or look at NFL, tradition and things like that. And they are taking I guess they're betting on themselves in a sense, is saying, we can kind of go anywhere. We're talented enough to go anywhere and be developed. And so we're going to take the money. It's hard for me to criticize it too much. If these people, I guess my concern is that, are they getting the right advice from people in terms of their finances? Because in theory, if you're going to pocket a couple $1 million during your college career, if you can find a way to not touch that money, you don't need to play in the NFL and you're set for life at that point.
Right.
If you just set that aside, forget it's there, and then wake up one day when you're 35, 40 years old, it's going to have tripled, quadrupled maybe by then. You're set. So I just hope that the kids who are doing this, who are taking the biggest dollar figure, I hope they're getting some financial guidance on this, because going and taking the biggest check only to blow it, by the time you're even out of college, that's kind of defeats the purpose of taking the biggest check to begin with.
Without a doubt, you can definitely set yourself up for life. And that's the thing. You can't fault these guys. And, I talk to Buckeye fans every day, and a constant refrain in what we say to kind of make ourselves feel better. We don't want guys that don't want to be Buckeyes anyway. And the truth is, there are guys that very much do want to be Buckeyes. Bralan Womack is one of them. And I think I've felt that way since the first time I talked to him the day he got his offer. He is a Buckeye fan. He was a Buckeye fan. He rattled off the 2019 roster, like deep down the roster to me, a kid from Mississippi. That's strange. And this dude's just always been gravitated towards Ohio State. He's obviously the big whale remaining for this Buckeye class. You've got Auburn in bad shape with their class, in really awkward shape with Hugh Freeze right now. It hasn't felt like the boosters have been giving him much support this cycle. They're kind of in a show me phase, but they appear to be ready to open up the pocketbook for Womack. Florida, Texas A&M also lurking there. And who knows, his sister also at Auburn. She transferred there close to Mississippi. And again, we saw another statement this week from his dad. And it just sounds like they've been putting it out there a couple times publicly. Like, listen, he wants to go to Ohio State. They got to be in the ballpark. That's the way it reads to me. Are you picking up the same vibe?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Do they need to be the highest bidder by $1? Like, do they need to have $1 more than Auburn or $1 more than Florida? No, I don't think it's got to be that, but it has to be competitive. And quite frankly, I don't know that you can blame him. If you're a 5-star prospect, I think you have to be, kind of concerned with that to an extent, in terms of you don't want to be taking some like 50% discount, for example, right, from one school or the other. So I see where they're coming from. I think Ohio State's going to be competitive on this one. We'll see. You never know until you know. You don't really know the final offer. Like, Ohio State doesn't do a lot of game playing with this. They kind of lay things out for them, but you never quite know until you know at the very end, because there's some things that happen now in the last 24 to 48 hours of these recruitments for guys that have their announcement dates set, and the price can just go through the roof sometimes. And so you never quite know if a school is putting all their cards on the table. Is Florida putting all their cards on the table? Is it Auburn? Right. Is A&M? Are they going to come in at the last? Are they going to lay in the weeds? This is a strategy some schools employ, is they kind of lay in the weeds, and then right before the announcement, the offer jumps substantially, and you can kind of try and trigger an emotional decision, is basically what you're trying to do at that point. And so that's what's made this way harder than it was 5 years ago to predict this stuff.
Without a doubt. Predicting it is it's ridiculous to even try anymore. So I just try to stick with watching patterns and seeing what my guys are going to try to do. And I feel like I'm with you here. I feel like they're going to make this happen. I think they're kind of in a spot here where you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. You might as well pay the guy you really like and that really likes you. And that's Womack. As far as a guy who can, usually their litmus test is, can he come in and contribute year one? We don't want dead money. We don't want money sitting on the bench. I think he's capable of that. But man, that safety room looks pretty good next year, to be honest. But losing Weatherspoon, it just feels like you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later.
Yeah, no question. I think the Weatherspoon loss is a little bit underrated in terms of, I think people have kind of tossed him into the tier 2 or the tier 3 of the class because of the bigger names that they're in on. And I think he's a really good player. I think he's very versatile. So I think that was maybe the bigger thing, is losing the versatility, because he's a guy who could have helped you at 2 or 3 different spots in the secondary. And so I think, yes, I think the antes are up now. It ups the ante here to get Womack to kind of round this thing into form. I still think they would like to have another corner that at some point, maybe it's someone they try and flip later in the process. But yeah, I think his importance has always been there, but I think it's been enhanced here the last few months, and given kind of what the landscape looks like and how Ohio State's done over the past 2 or 3 months, and maybe missing on some top targets on defense. So going to be interesting, but again, I think they're going to be competitive here. I think that's all he wants, is a competitive landscape where he's not feeling like he's got to take half as much money or something like that to go to the school that he probably wants to go to. I think the other interesting thing is, if you look at this, and I know this doesn't seem to matter as much anymore, but you mentioned it, like Auburn, where is that program right now? They're not relevant nationally. Is Hugh Freeze on the hot seat this year? I mean, it's not a very patient fan base. Billy Napier was almost fired last year, kind of saved his job toward the end. They have a brutal schedule. if he goes 6-6 this year on a schedule that could very much allow for him to go 6-6 this year, how does that impact Billy Napier at Florida? And then we know that A&M is trying to kind of hit the reset button with Mike Elko, but they are going against three programs who don't have a lot of proof of concept right now. And I think that is when you can talk about money, you can talk about childhood favorites, you can talk about all those things, and I think they're all going to be at play here. But you have four programs and only one that has proof of concept right now, and I think that's going to really help Ohio State as long as the offer is competitive.
There is a definite stability difference when we talk about Ohio State and those three programs, for sure. Been a lot of talk recently amongst the fan base about the potential of the Buckeyes kind of pivoting their strategy based on the CSC backing down and allowing collectives to be classified as a business. A collective's stated goal, it's not to turn a profit, it's to pay players. Even if they're making a legit business transaction, that's a business transaction. However, you can make a business transaction with one guy that passes the clearinghouse, and then you can make that same business transaction with 50 guys on your roster that will all also pass the clearinghouse for one coach's clinic. It's a loophole. It's a loophole, and it's going to be exploited by everybody. There were already some who were doing it, but now you got the guys who've been playing by the rules, like Ohio State's been trying to do this down the board here. We're playing it by the rules here. And I think a lot of people were wondering, okay, are they going to pivot, take advantage of this? And for those that weren't paying attention to this, basically what that means is Ohio State was not offering guaranteed NIL deals. You can't offer a guaranteed NIL deal if you got a kid coming up and you're trying to hook him up with businesses. You have no idea who's going to want to pay him, who's going to want to pay him to advertise. But if you're using this loophole, you kind of can offer guaranteed NIL deals. So our Tony Gerdeman asked Ross Bjork in his press conference the other day if there was going to be any change in how they address things since then. And Ross said, we were ready to pivot, but we didn't really need to because, we've got everything set up with the Buckeye Sports Group and the business opportunities. Basically saying publicly, no. What anybody was hoping was going to happen there is probably not going to happen. That being the case, outside of Womack, I don't expect to see Ohio State try to go back on anybody aggressively, flipping them with money offers or anything of the sort at this point. Do you?
No, I don't think so. Not in terms of like upping. I know they felt they had a very competitive offer with Luke Wafel, who obviously got whatever the room. It's a lot of money from USC. Yeah. So I think they would revisit certain situations. I think the more likely scenario in terms of kind of down the stretch as we get into like what I predict will be just insane November and December this year is that maybe some guys reassess their situations because of either a coaching change or because the checks aren't clearing. Like some of these schools, I don't know how they're going to be able to keep some of the promises they're making right now. Now we are in the Wild West still, I think, but I just don't know where this is all coming from. And I predicted this when this all first started. I said there's going to be schools that overpromise and can't deliver. And sure enough, the Jaden Rashada thing happened, and other examples, of course, as well. But yeah. I think that might be on steroids this time, given what's going on right now. And I think that's the more likely scenario is maybe a recruit becomes disenchanted with their situation and isn't, maybe being assured that they're going to get what they were promised and may revisit things at that point, and that may allow an opportunity for Ohio State. But do I think Ohio State's going to all of a sudden go crazy money cannon in December and do all that? No, I think they're going to do what they can to get Womack. They're going to reassess this fall, like targets they may have missed on, or try and find some sleepers. They always kind of find one or two of those as well. And really kind of in NIL terms and how they handle that in NIL strategy, I think a lot of that is any pivot that we see is probably going to be done for 2027 at this point. Yeah. If we see it.
Right. I think a lot of people would be just fine with that if they felt, okay, in 2027, if they get into that and everybody is still ignoring this and things have gone how they've gone so far, that Ohio State's going to say, okay, we're not going to sit here and accept having 2 classes outside the top 10 when nobody else is following these rules. I think everybody would feel a whole lot better if they felt that next year, things will be different. But a lot of stressed out folks. Obviously, you come off a national championship. If you'd have told anybody in the beginning of February, Ohio State would be flirting with getting kicked out of the top 10, I don't think anybody that follows Buckeye recruiting would have believed you. They'd have laughed you off the screen. But here we are. They're sitting at 9th. You've got USC and Oregon at 1 and 3 to make it not feel good even more. And Michigan right on the heels. However, when we look at the class, and we'll go through it, we're going to go through it by position groups this evening. Not a whole lot of holes. They've done a pretty good job of filling everything they need. You got a couple of glaring spots, right? You got the edge where you only got Kari Wilder. However, only getting Kari Wilder is sounds a lot different than it did at first. Kari Wilder is just going to be a total beast. And then corner. And that is a big concern in my opinion, because after watching Jordan Woods, seeing him in person, the athlete that he is and the size that he is, I don't know how he stays at corner. Jordan Woods and Devin Sanchez were the pair in 2025. In 2026, you've just got Jordan Thomas, and that really seems like 2 corners to me. So are there any prospects at corner that I'm overlooking that I'm not seeing that you've heard about that you see a potential on?
It's kind of bare right now. I was talking with Andrew Ellis about this. I think it was just last week. And, Danny Odom's a guy that they lost to Nebraska that would seem to make a lot of sense to double back on. There doesn't seem to be a lot of momentum or buzz there right now. So it feels very much like they're kind of in wait and see. And it's going to be senior film will start coming out here in middle of September. Those first 3 or 4 games will get out. And I think it's going to be an evaluation process on some guys. And I think on some others, it's going to be a kind of, okay, is Danny Odom, how's Danny Odom look? Do we want to continue? Do we want to kind of revisit that one? Has he had a good start to his season? Financially, what's that going to entail? I know Nebraska was pretty competitive there with what they jumped in on there. So I think there's a lot of situations that they've got to evaluate, both the on the field situation and, you're essentially managing a salary cap now. And I know people will say, well, there's not really a salary cap. Well, yeah, but you can't. Ohio State has all sorts of money. They don't have, they're not the Yankees. They can't just, they can't have a $300 million payroll. I mean, there is a limit to what these schools, even the USCs, can spend. So I think you're kind of managing a cap right now as well. And I mean, here's the secret, and it's not so much of a secret anymore, but these loaded deals where you're paying $1 million for a kid's freshman year, you might as well set that money on fire. Like a lot of these kids are not going to play. I used Paris Johnson as an example. Paris Johnson's the prototype left tackle prospect.
Yeah.
The premium position. If you pay Paris Johnson $1.2 million his freshman year, you set $1.2 million on fire. He gave the team that year virtually nothing. And then he played guard his second year. And so you paid, would you pay $8 million for, over 3 years for 1 year of Paris Johnson at left tackle?
1 year left tackle.
You might, the answer might be yes. I'm not telling anyone what to think. The answer might be yes. But these are the questions you have to ask yourself, because that's like best case. Like Paris is like, he's exactly what they thought he was. He's an absolute franchise left tackle, and you still only got 1 year left tackle out of him. You got him at guard for a year, but like you have to ask yourself these things. And I see these big deals going out there, and I'm as big of a Felix Ojo guy as anybody. But again, the idea that he's going to make 7 figures his first year on campus, that you're not going to get a return on that investment. You're just not. You have to hope he is so good years 2 and 3 that it kind of overshadows that wasted $1 million you gave him his freshman year. So there are so many decisions these coaches have to make now that they didn't have to make 5 years ago. It's
a tough thing to navigate, because you do got so many programs out there seemingly willing to take that loss on that year one And you just get driven out of the market on so many prospects that you've wasted all this time on, doing old school recruiting and building relationships. And it's like, in the end, it turns out being a highest bidder type deal. I was wondering if maybe they're going to try to maybe sniff that out a little earlier and get out on guys moving forward that they think are going to end up being those kinds of situations. It's just such a strange, constant moving thing here now that we're dealing with. I was thinking, we were at practice on Saturday. We both discussed edge. Everybody wants to talk about edge. Everybody concerned about edge. We came away in the show that we did on Saturday both feeling quite well about the young edges, about not just Epi Satanile and Zion Grady, but a guy that you've liked for years now, Dominic Kirks, looked really good. Adding in Kari Wilder on that, it doesn't feel near as stressful watching those young guys out there as it felt to me before I saw them in action. They look like they're all going to be really solid college football players with higher ceilings than solid.
Yeah, I think for sure, like you need more numbers, and we talked about this, but if two of those three that you just mentioned, if two of those three turn into like legitimate starters for you, and we get a glimpse of that this year, we see glimpses of some of these guys this year, like, kind of how we got glimpses of Kenyatta Jackson the last couple of years, kind of knowing, okay, when he's ready, when it's his turn, he's going to be just fine. If we get that out of some of those guys this year, the narrative does change a bit. It doesn't make defensive end recruiting less important. It's still, you have to recruit defensive linemen, offensive linemen, and quarterbacks. Those are the three. I mean, everything else is icing on the cake, even wide receiver, which I know everyone loves to talk about now. But if you can recruit those three positions, you are golden. So we're not trying to downplay maybe that, but it gives you a little better sense of like, okay, go get a vet in the portal in the offseason as a top 3 or 4 defensive end for you, and just keep hammering it out with these kids at the high school level. But it's not the red alert or whatever. I always use like red alert, orange alert. Yeah, I use like the alert system. It's not red alert if we see something out of these guys this year that gives optimism. And I've seen good things at practice. Now, that's practice. It's different. Let's wait, let's see what things look like in, September and October. But there's enough reason there to think, okay, maybe this isn't like a dire situation. They just need a little more depth.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to go through, despite this class, there's some holes, but I really like it when we go through from top to bottom, and some parts more than others. But I wanted to go through tonight, being that there's not a ton of prospects to talk about that aren't buttoned down, and talk about the guys in this class, just kind of go through these position groups, starting with Luke Fahey. And Luke Fahey, obviously a quarterback who is just outside the top 300-ish, a kid who from Mission Viejo was thrown to Phillip Bell, a little undersized, got a lot of arm talent. He's smart, likable kid. He's a Buckeye fan from California, which is pretty cool. I always enjoy that. Brady Edmunds is as well. But I think that unless you were going to spend a lot of money, there was really no other route you could go other than get a guy like a Fahey, and I think you nailed it with him being that type of guy for you, because spending that money just wouldn't make sense to put somebody between Tavian St. Clair and Brady Edmunds.
Yeah, this is the other thing I think people are going to have to adjust to. The days of just stacking 5-star quarterbacks are over. Mm-hmm. You can maybe have 2 on the roster at once, but the attrition there is just going to be so substantial. And we know what the market is right now for a 5-star quarterback. And it's basically starting at mid 7 figures, upwards of, $8-10 million. You can't have 3 or 4 guys like that on the roster at quarterback. You don't have any more money for anybody else. So these transitional year type quarterback evaluations are going to be critical. Yeah. Because some of these 5-stars aren't going to pan out. So you better have done your homework on that, transitional guy that you think is just the filler between your 2 5-star prospects. You better take that seriously in terms of your evaluations. I think they did here. They looked at a lot of guys.
Yeah.
This looks to me about as good as you could have reasonably expected, given what the landscape looked like once things went, once Jared Curtis, kind of fell off the board there early after Corey Dennis left. I think this is kind of what the best case scenario looked like. And again, that allows you to continue to do what you're going to do in 27. I think they're going to try and take 2 in 27. We'll see. They're certainly kicking tires there.
All right. So that was my next question, because I've been hearing that, and I'm so all in on Brady Edmunds. I don't understand, Mark. Why? Why do they want to?
Well, I think for one, the numbers. Like, look, let's be real here. The odds of Julian Sain and Lincoln Kienholz both being on the roster, a year from now are probably slim. So you're losing one there. Tavian, of course, you have Tavian. I mean, that gives you 3, like looking at like long-term when the 27s get onto campus, because if, Kienholz will either exhaust his eligibility, if he's the guy, if Sain's the guy, which we think he is, he's probably not a guy who's going to, he's a redshirt freshman or whatever. He's not going to start 4 years at Ohio State. He's either going to be good enough to play in the NFL and move on early, or he's not going to be good enough, and Tavian St. Clair is going to usurp him at some point. So you're looking at a situation with 3 scholarship quarterbacks, which is just not an ideal spot to be in. They want 4. And Brady Edmunds, the person, is a very unique person. It's a great family. He's a great kid. He's a very talented quarterback prospect. He is a little raw. And you did take him early. And I don't think Ryan Day would like to take quarterbacks as early as maybe they have in the past. I think you get into situations where the kid wants to commit, and this has happened with them numerous times. It's not just Brady. And it's like, well, you have to take the commitment. You can't be like, well, we don't want to take a quarterback for another 12 months because now you've turned off a kid who is very likely going to be your top target just because of a timeline you want to keep. So I think there's some of that too, where it's like, this guy still has 2 years of high school football. They have so much more evaluating to do of Brady, let alone the other quarterbacks. So you factor that in with the numbers, you factor that in with just the new reality of the quarterback situation, just being a revolving door every year of attrition and everything else. And I just think it behooves them to continue to hey, let's keep an eye on a few of these guys. It's going to have to be someone special, I think. I don't think they're going to just bring in a depth guy.
Okay, so you're talking a Teddy Gerard, an Elijah Haven type of prospect.
Yep.
And you think they could swing that, get them both in the class? Is that what we're coming to now? Is that what this is?
I mean, you're going to have to try. Now, is Jack Miller, CJ Stroud the same as what we're talking about here? You could probably argue that it's not, but Jack Miller at one point was like an early 5-star type of guy, was thought to be. And then by the time the process sort of wrapped up, CJ Stroud was. So they've been able to kind of figure this out in the past, but I don't think they have any intention of doing anything that would force Brady away. I just think if Elijah Haven's going to continue to visit, that you have to kind of see where that goes. You kind of owe it to your program to see where that goes. And Elijah Haven's really good, by the way, too. Brady's very good too. Elijah Haven is probably the best 2027 I've seen in person so far. So I think it's worth at least,
say it's worth it for that option too. But yeah, man, interesting. Going to be wild to see how this one plays out. I'll tell you that I might be a little biased because I really, really like Brady.
Oh, he's just, it's so easy to root for him.
Yeah.
Big, strong. I mean, he can really rip it. There's a lot to like there. It's I don't think it's an indictment on Brady by any means. I just think it's the reality of these guys have 2 more years of development. There's 2 years for things to happen. There's 2 years for all sorts. I mean, anything 2 years in college football is an eternity. It's an eternity. Sure. So you just can't just be like, oh, we're done. Who cares if Brady Edmunds gets any better or not? Who cares if Elijah Haven will still come up and visit, for the Texas game or, whatever, which I'm still kind of expecting. So, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, I think you have to. Kids are keeping their options open.
Right.
I guarantee you, even someone as committed as Brady, I guarantee you is at least not so much in like the recruiting world of like, oh, I'm still interested, coach. But I guarantee you there are coaches that call him that he takes their call and just has a conversation about how's life, how's your family, how's this, how's that. Like all these kids are doing this, even the ones that are the most solidly committed you can possibly be. They're keeping because they know that the coaching landscape can change. And so it's no different for the coaches. They know that players get better or worse or not, you're either getting better or worse essentially. As sophomores in high school, there's a development curve there. There's NIL money. There's all sorts of things that can change.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to Favorite Key. Local kid, smart kid, pretty high floor. I really like him. Young guy, too. He's a year younger, I think, than most of the kids in the class. And he is, not a top-tier back. They wanted Derek Cooper, Savion Hyder, and maybe Jay Lamar, somebody of that ilk. And when they couldn't get him, they said, we're good. And I like that. I like it a lot because you got Bo Jackson in 2025, who you've been very high on for years now. I think he's just a special, special back. And you also bring in Turbo Rogers with him and Isaiah West, who's another 3-down back. There was no need to press. In addition to that, they pretty much got their clear number one target for 2027, and things seem to be going very, very well with David Gabriel George.
Yep, going to be back for the Texas game. I think he's maybe their favorite running back of the last 2 or 3 cycles. Just talking to people over there, he is, and they're in love with him. So I think that's a guy that we start talking about NIL and competitive offers and everything else. I think that's a guy they will make sure that they are not left in the cold over something like money. But just a tremendous player. The roster spacing, I think, allows you to do this. I think Favor's a really good player. Again, I think he's a guy who knows he can still develop. You don't really think of running backs as like developmental guys. They're usually like the more college ready of most of the positions. But Favor's just his body type. He can bulk up. There's some things there. I think he's still a little raw, and I think there will be a patience on both sides of this thing that will allow him to kind of ease into the role he's going to have at Ohio State and not hamstring you long term because you've got the 3 backs in front of him. And like, let's face it, we talk about this in a negative way. We talk about, it's so hard to get like a stud pass rusher in the portal because there's only like 1 or 2 of them every portal cycle and everyone's throwing money at them. It's not that hard to find a running back in the portal.
Right.
So if the numbers shift in a way that's not great for Ohio State in the meantime, just go to the portal this offseason like you've done the last 2 years for Judkins and Donaldson and go find another really good running back in the portal and kind of, bridge the gap there. But I think this was sound. I don't think you get into bidding wars for running backs. I really don't. Not high school running backs. If you want to throw money at Quinshon Judkins, who's like, the number 1 or 2 running back in America, going into the season, then by all means go ahead if you want to do something like that. But to get in bidding wars for a high school running back, I just wouldn't do it. There would be a line at some point, and I think with Favor being local and being capable, they weren't going to go nuts on a second back in the class, and so they weren't able to get their top 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah, and again, I am not someone who there's some people who don't like Ohio State giving money to high school prospects. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm totally with you when it comes to running back. It's very much positional value for me. In how easy are they to replace in the portal? There are some positions that are really, really difficult to find an impact player in the portal. Running back certainly isn't one of them. Moving on to wide receiver, a 5 wide receiver class. I think I might have heard you say you're not so sure it finishes with 5, but there's 5 right now. And you got Chris Henry Jr., who is such an interesting wide receiver prospect, starting to look a little less like his dad and a little more like the Polynesian side. He's getting wider. He's getting broader. He's getting, he's a big kid, man. He is something.
Yeah, he's something. Yeah,
Caden Dixon-Wyatt, ridiculous athlete,
Yep.
great ball skills. Jaquaden Guilford is, man, really exciting. I couldn't believe that guy was a 3-star so long. I did see he just got recently bumped up, but a long strider. He's got great ball skills as well. Number 1 player in Indiana. Brock Boyd comes in. He's going to be one of the fastest guys on the team walking in the door. Really polished for a high school wide receiver already. So he's ahead on the curve a little bit. And then hometown Jaden Ricketts, who I don't know if he's not had a lot of wide receiver experience. He doesn't have a lot of wide receiver film.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's the product of the system he plays in. It's not a program that historically has thrown the football a lot or had the personnel to throw the football a lot. So I think that's been a little unfortunate for him. And kudos to him. I think so many times nowadays kids are transferring high schools just because they got to go somewhere where they think they're going to win more or whatever it might be. And so it is refreshing when we see guys like Jaden, like Tavian St. Clair did at Bell Fountain. Like he could have went to IMG, and been their quarterback. It is refreshing to see that. But yeah, he's definitely I think a little behind the others in terms of just the offenses he's played in, and I think the other guys have played in more receiver friendly offenses, have had maybe more talented quarterbacks throwing them the ball. Obviously Modern Day and South Lake Carroll are 2 of the best programs in the country. So there's a little bit of that there, but it'll be interesting to see, can they keep all 5? They're not going to tell anyone they can't sign. That's not going to happen, but is someone, and I don't think it'll be the Modern Day kids, but it's like, is someone going to look at this and be like, well, gosh, there's a lot of receivers here, and School X has now come in and they're offering more money. And I just think that's something you always have to watch now in the NIL landscape, where you and I have talked before about kind of off camera about, what people don't realize with some of the NIL stuff is you have different schools of thought. You have schools, we'll call them mid-tier Power 4 schools, who don't have the resources that Ohio State or Texas or Georgia or Alabama have. So what do? Do they just try and out-evaluate everybody? Well, yeah, they try to do that, but what they also do is they say, look, we're not going to be able to compete on a player-for-player, dollar-for-dollar basis with Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, or Georgia. What we can do is we can go big on 3 or 4 players and force the issue on those programs where that's our wide receiver 1. Is he their wide receiver 1, or is he their wide receiver 2 or 3? And are they going to match that type of offer for a guy we need more than they do? And so that's what you're seeing. Is I know UCLA is one school that's doing this. They're like, okay, let's go get like 3 or 4 just absolute studs, and then we're just going to have to fill in the rest of the class and try and just out-evaluate people on the rest of it. So that's a strategy being employed, and that's making it harder on the big boys to kind of keep the depth of their recruiting classes.
They did, and they took one of the Buckeyes' top targets in Micah Smith. Speaking of that offensive line, the Buckeyes get longtime favorite of Mark Givler, Sam Greer, the number 1 player in Ohio, out of Hoban, Max Riley out of Avon, Aaron Thomas and Tucker Smith, both out of Arizona, to have a 4-man offensive line class right now as it sits. There are some potential local guys they could try to double back on if they want to. And if that happens, that'd be great. If it doesn't, I really like this 4-man offensive line class because I think that what you got in 2025 were 3 really solid future starters at Ohio State.
Yeah, I've been very critical of the Ohio State offensive line over the years, not so much like last year, but just over the years in general, recruiting issues, everything else. I going to practice the last 3 days that we were there and seeing in the spring and everything else, there's a much different vibe in terms of the depth of talent on the offensive line this year from where I sit. Even last year, I think so much of the depth hinged upon just the versatility of Donovan Jackson and Carson Hinsman more than it was that they had like 10 guys. I think they had like 7, but just so happened that 2 of them could play just about anywhere. And so that patched up some things for them when they got some injuries. But being at practice last year, whenever the 2s went in, so that was like, Zen Mahalski, George Fitzpatrick, guys who are no longer here. It was a bloodbath with the number 2 defensive line. It was a bloodbath. And we're not seeing that this year. We're not seeing it. Does the defensive line win its fair share of reps? Yes. But when we watch practice, do we see the number 2 offensive line just getting completely overwhelmed? No. We saw Ian Moore have a very good practice, the other day. So they are much more equipped right now to sustain an injury, which I know sounds ridiculous after what happened last year, but they are much more equipped to sustain an injury like anywhere. They have 4 tackles that I think are capable. They have 4 guards that I think are capable. They have multiple guys that can play center. This just looks like a deeper group. And to their credit, because I didn't always agree with their philosophy here on the numbers, I think they're finding that instead of taking what could be maybe considered a project 5th or 6th offensive lineman in a class, that they'll just go get a ready-made portal guy who can plug and play.
Yeah. Hey, at this point, I'm feeling really secure about it, really secure about the guys in this class. I really, Tucker Smith, as a guy who was sitting at the bottom of the class, I mean, he's a real 6'5", 280 pounds and lean. I mean, this kid being kind of undersold, in my opinion, but they've all got a ton of potential. Aaron Thomas played just 1 year of offensive line, and he'll just get nothing but better. I see him getting pumped up.
Florida State's lurking there, so that's going to be
I
something.
talked to Aaron yesterday, and Aaron said they're full of blue mud. He said, so his mom and dad, they're Florida State alums. They were going to a Florida State game, and he said he's not even going now because they tried to turn this into something. He said it was never a recruiting visit. Now, they're still after him, I'm sure.
Have you seen Florida State's offensive line the last few years? Those guys need to spend, and they will. So that's going to be – I think Aaron's going to have some financial decisions to make here in the next few months. But, yeah, it's so far so good. But
Ben Congdon, I would really like to see him double back on Ben Congdon. They never offered him. He's 6'8". He's a stud. Miami loves him. Committed to Miami. That one wouldn't make me upset.
Guthrie is the one that they're more likely to double back on, just from what I've heard. I'm not super convinced that either one would happen, but that's just the sense I get, is that Guthrie is the more likely one to be for them to double back on. But we'll see. Like I said, these games. The other part about these games now is like you never know who's going to show up. You never know who's going to walk out that tunnel before a game. Like, oh my good, like David Sanders last year,
right?
The stir he caught. Like, so just like I keep saying this on all of our shows. Let's see who shows up for that Texas game, because I think we're going to find I think there's going to be a few surprises. I think there's going to be guys that show up for that Texas game like, oh my goodness, and then we're going to be sitting here trying to figure out, okay, they just want to see Ohio State versus Texas, and right. Ohio State obliged and just took their shot, and it's not going anywhere, or are we talking about a serious situation here?
Corbin Fordham at tight end. I don't have any huge thoughts on Corbin Fordham other than he is up 15 pounds. We watched his film. He's 215. I know you went down and you saw him and talked to him. Seems like a really good kid.
I love Corbin. Corbin's my guy. I hope he's watching this. Corbin's my guy.
Okay. It says something to me when there are 2 tight ends in Ohio that go to Notre Dame and Georgia, and Keenan Bailey said, I want this one right off the rip. And it's a 3-star kid from Jacksonville. That says something to me. Georgia was after him really hard as well. So that makes me feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, this was an early, I always look at that type of thing. Certainly guys can become priority targets later. It's not that every guy they offer later isn't a priority or, isn't a great evaluation or anything like that. But I don't worry so much about the early rankings when they get the early offer and they get the early push from Ohio State. I don't concern myself so much that, they're just a 3-star. Now, if it's at the end of the process and you've whiffed on 10 kids and you're doubling back and you offer a 3-star, then I'm like, okay, yeah, they're probably offering a 3-star there. But I never got that sense with Corbin. That was always a guy they pushed very hard for, that Keenan Bailey connected with very early, and the two I talked to Corbin about just working with Keenan at camp. He's worked with him at camp, I think, twice now, and it just felt like it was like sparks. It was like, not to get like sappy about it, but like just absolutely loved working with Keenan Bailey at camp. It's like, this is a guy I want to play for. So it was just a perfect match. Corbin, excellent kid, excellent technician in terms of he works really hard at everything from blocking. He loves to block. He's good at it, works on his footwork, works on leverage, works on everything, and then but also loves to catch ball. So he works on every aspect of his game. He's a very, very intelligent kid, very hard worker, and just feels like a guy that will be good at Ohio State to me. It would just be a little surprising to me if he wasn't a good player at Ohio State.
Yeah, sounds just about right. His teammate, Simeon Caldwell, in the class, Tim Walton's nephew, and this is an interesting prospect, Mark. I mean, there's a lot of people. He pretty much plays outside linebacker at Bulls, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's an outside linebacker at Bulls, recruited technically as a safety. Do you see him coming down to linebacker eventually or pretty quickly?
I think pretty quickly, hopefully more quickly than Sonny Styles. I'll get any chance. I will take any chance I can get to be mad about Sonny Styles playing a down at safety at Ohio State.
Believe me, I've heard you say that 20 times, bro.
I can't help myself. I'm sorry. I think probably on the quicker side of things, he's long. He's tall, he's like 6'3", physical, fast. I just think he's a new age, like 3-down linebacker to me. I think he's going to be a really good player.
Excellent. Blaine Bradford, the hammerhead safety out of Louisiana. Out of all the commitments this class, this one surprised me more than anything. And probably everybody, really. I mean, just the fact that he's from Louisiana, an LSU feeder school at that. And, oh, by the way, his brother is on the team. That one just blew my mind. But when I see him up visiting and this pictures come out, like the smile on this guy's face, he loves Ohio State. And he's now my favorite in this class just because of that. I just love him.
It was great getting down there. We had never, I shouldn't say that. We had never stopped in Baton Rouge on our southern trip we do every spring. And we had gone through New Orleans once, but really like Louisiana is kind of an afterthought on our way to Texas, usually on the trip. And we got to spend a lot of time. We got to watch Blaine's entire practice, talk to his coaches a little bit, and then meeting with Blaine afterwards. It was just so impressive. I wasn't sure what he would say, and just like all the right thing, like all the things I was like, if he says this, it's real, like that type of thing. Like he just not. I pressed him. I'm like, look, man, no one thinks this is gonna stick. Like,
yeah.
What do you say to that? Why would anyone think this is gonna stick? And he didn't. There was no thought to it. It was very natural. It flowed very naturally to him, and he just seems to really love Ohio State. Like you said, I still am like, okay, let's see him show up to Columbus. What's LSU going to do between now and December? What type of Godfather offer is going to be presented to him? But I know this is one that Ohio State's like, no, we're not going to take a back seat on NIL here. I know Ohio State was very competitive there, and they're going to make sure. I mean, this is their guy. This was their guy from day one, and it'll be like I've said. What type of universe are we living in where Ohio State potentially signs 2 safeties, one from Jackson, Mississippi, one from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and their top 2027 running back targets French Canadian?
I thought you were going to say, and they lost their ready-made secondary, the whole thing out of
they lost. Yeah, we thought they were just going to do all the. They just take the Ohio corners and not have to worry about anything now, or get none of them. Yeah.
Yeah, not a single one. So Jordan Thomas was the number 1 corner on the board, we're told, out of New Jersey, Bergen Catholic, and he's long, he's strong, kid's really talented. Another great kid, straight A student, never had a B in his career at high school or grade school, I suppose, too. But awesome kid, awesome player. Obviously, you need another, but I'm really happy with him. If you're going to just have one, I really like the player.
Oh, I love Jordan Thomas. I think they really need to get another one. But I just in a vacuum, Jordan Thomas, phenomenal player. Very much fits the mold of what they like in terms of his size and length. And again, there's versatility there, I think, with things he can do in the secondary. Great program, plays great competition. So there's really nothing to not like, I guess, about if I said that correctly, about Jordan Thomas. Like, he checks every box.
Yeah.
But I very much would like them to sign another corner. I really think they need to.
James Laurinaitis, what he's done with the linebacker room has been just outstanding. And then we got in this cycle, Sincere Johnson, who another just great dude. They made him work for his offer. I remember talking to him before he got it when Jacoby Clapper got offered and Storm Miller got offered. And he was just upbeat, positive, even though he'd gone down and worked out and really wanted it. But he gets it, and then he becomes top recruit in the country, top 5 linebacker in the whole land. Ends up being big time, commits to the Buckeyes. Awesome story, great player, really fast, but point A to point B guy, and a total hammer. CJ Sana, a guy who just played 1 year at linebacker so far. He's long. He is quicker in short spaces than Sincere. The dude's a legit athlete, and I really like both of these guys.
Yeah, I think when you look at them as potential Mike prospects, especially Sincere, and then you factor in, as we talked about, the likelihood that Simeon Caldwell will eventually join that room. This is another monster class from James Laurinaitis, who is kind of becoming the Brian Hartline of the defense a little bit.
Mr. Automatic.
Yep. In terms, we talked about the other day, we're old enough to remember Cade Stover getting moved to linebacker to play in the Rose Bowl. Jelani Thurman's not moving to linebacker. That's not happening. So they've got such good depth right now. Laurinaitis is hitting a high percentage of his targets. He's showing an ability to evaluate well, just as we've seen kind of some of the early returns on some of the freshmen this year. And I really think he's done it again here. Maybe not quite as high profile, just because you didn't go get the Florida and Texas kid. You got the Ohio kids or whatever. But I think he's done an excellent job again. And I can't wait to see CJ this year because, you mentioned it. He's not a guy that's played a ton of linebacker. And I watched him in 7-on-7 in the summer, and I was like, okay, how's he going to move? Because he never you don't watch 7-on-7 for linebacker play. Other than how does he move? And so I was super impressed by his ability to kind of chase things down. They would throw little out patterns or little bubbles, and he would run it down. And so he runs very, very well. And then, like you said, Sincere is just an old fashioned thumper. Just he's a tough, strong kid.
Yeah, he is. He's fun to watch, man. He takes it back to the mid '90s. That's what it feels like. The stud linebackers. That's what it looks like, right?
Make the different sound. He makes a different sound when he hits guys. The pads make a different sound.
Last position, we've not covered the interior of the defensive line. We've gone over Kari Wilder. So the interior of the defensive line, Bucks get Damari Simeon, and he was a top-tier target out of New Jersey. I think he is just ridiculously strong, probably a little underrated. Got a lot of growing to do, and so far, so good, man. The kid's just pretty dominant. Jameer Perez, the big boy from Glenville who originally committed to Florida, flips to the Buckeyes, and I think, despite – and we'll talk in a minute here about the 3 stars. There are a lot of 3 stars this class. Jameer's one of them. Don't care. I think that is a unique guy right there, and to be able to have that on your roster, fantastic. It makes you be able to you can do something that you couldn't do without him. So I'm very happy with that. And then Cam Brickle, if you couldn't get Jameer Perez, I actually wanted Cam Brickle or Preston Carey or Emmanuel Ruffin. And I was thinking, if you can get Perez, I would rather not. I'd rather go a different direction. But you ended up getting Brickle and Perez. I think Brickle, he's the one I wanted out of the three of those guys I named. But I think he's pretty twitchy. I'm excited to see him at IMG and see him against some stiffer competition. Some people concerned about the high school hopping. I don't know the backstory behind that, but ultimately, I like these three guys.
Yeah, I think there's maybe more risk involved on these in terms of I think some body composition stuff with Jameer, obviously. I don't think I think Simeon's very good. I think the other two are potentially very good. I think there's maybe a lower floor.
Yes.
Like a low floor, high ceiling type of game you're playing there. One thing I'd be curious about, he would probably never answer this on the record, because I don't know if there'd be a good way for him to answer it on the record. But I do wonder, they had Kenneth Grant at camp several years ago. And Kenneth Grant was built very similarly to Jameer Perez. And they didn't like the idea of him having to shed, 30, 40 pounds. And his basically Kenneth Grant's body type led to them not offering him a scholarship. Well, he goes to Michigan and ends up being a very good player there. I wonder, because I do think we are talking about very similar physical profiles coming out of high school, I do wonder if that impacted their decision to offer Jameer Perez in terms of like, well, let's maybe not make that mistake again, and let's just shed the weight off of him and deal with that. If it takes the first year to do that or first year and a half to do that, that's fine, but let's not pass up an opportunity on a big, high upside, one-tech guy with pretty good feet.
This has always confused me, Mark. They got no problem saying we're going to throw 40, 50 pounds of muscle on somebody, but peeling 30, 40 pounds of chub off of them, which seems so much easier to me. Like that's always like, we're scared to do that. We don't want to do that. I don't know. I don't get it. But I do want to hit on this before we wrap it up. A lot of 3-star anger. When we look at classes like 21, 22, 23 combined, there were 5 3-stars. In 2025, you got 5 3-stars. 2026, 7 3-stars. And I was trying to go through and just take a look at success rate and hit rate, and I realized I was going about it wrong. The fact is, there aren't enough 3-stars at Ohio State previously to really give me any real data. So what I did was I went and I just looked at the bottom 10 players from 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And out of the bottom 10 players, you are successful if 3 of them become contributors. 2.75 is the average. If you can hit 3 out of 10, 30% on those bottom 10 guys, you are winning. With that said, do I really care if it is a 3-star ranked number 540 in the country or a low 4-star ranked number 402? I really don't. These guys are evaluating these dudes, and maybe that 4-star costs a little more money where this guy doesn't cost you anything. I mean, who knows what it is? The bottom line is, if you can hit 3, you're winning. I think they can hit 3 out of this group. I like this group of 3-stars, to be honest.
Yeah, there's an interest. Like, I think the star system it's obviously not a perfect system, but I don't know that there is a perfect system when it comes to something that's so imperfect as evaluating teenagers. But there is more of a tier thing. Like, and I've said this for years. I worked at Rivals for a decade, maybe a little more, maybe 12 years. The top like 15, 20 kids are like no-brainers, like amazing. But then you start to get into the weeds a little bit, and it's like, I've tried to explain this to people, and everyone's so emotional about like their commits versus other teams' commits, and our guys are better, our guys are getting cheated by the rank. It's like I don't think there's a true understanding of how thin the margin is between player number 83 in the country and player number 166 in the country. Like we're splitting hairs at that point. We're really, once we get outside the top 200, we're really splitting hairs. Like again, as you pointed out, the difference between the last 54 stars, the bottom 54 stars and the top 200 3-stars is nothing. It's maybe one little thing. It's a little bit of speed, a little bit better body comp, a little bit better frame, a little bit better shape, whatever it might be. You really do have to split hairs when you start getting into the hundreds, when we start talking about that. And the other thing, you're not getting equal evaluations across the board.
Right.
Not every kid is being evaluated as often as every other kid. You're seeing different kids in different situations, different competition levels in high school. Some kids do more camps than others. Some kids are better at camping. Joe Burrow was a terrible camp quarterback. Terrible. But you put him on the field on a Friday night, and there was just about nothing he couldn't do, which made him a really interesting evaluation, by the way, trying to piece that together. But
yeah,
and then there's guys who, hey, this is an Ohio State show. We can get a little crappy about Michigan, right? Like,
absolutely.
You put Shane Morris in a t-shirt and shorts, and he'll throw it through a brick wall, and he'll win the accuracy challenge and everything. But the minute Shane Morris has to process and do everything else and deliver an accurate football in pads, it falls apart. So, like, how do you weigh some of these guys in these different settings? So that's a long-winded way of just saying it's an inexact science, but it is. But I just think the gaps that people perceive when you talk about the high 3 and the low 4 it's just not as wide as people think it is. And it comes down to, like, again, I just think fans get emotional about, like, they want their guys ranked, higher. Of course, they think more highly of their guys, and you get into the fan biases, and hopefully the politics haven't shifted too much with the recruiting sites as far as, well, this is this region or that region. So there used to be stuff there too, where you're worried about, like, okay, like, we're Midwest kids getting a fair shake. We're, are these kids getting evaluated enough? So hopefully, I think a lot of that's been cleaned up a little bit, because I don't think we've never had more information on these kids coming out of high school like we do now. So I think things have gotten better, put it that way.
Yeah, I'd agree. It certainly seems to me like things are much more dialed in than they were just 5 years ago. On our next show, guys, we will be obviously we got the Womack decisions coming up August 22nd. But
he's moved. I think it's 21st now. It was the 22nd. I think
2 weeks out.
Yes.
2 weeks out from the Womack decision. But what I want to get into with Mark on the next show, Ohio recruiting, the last 2 classes in Ohio, what needs to happen in 2027. And we are going to introduce you to some of our favorite prospects in 27. And we will get with that in the next few weeks. Whenever Mark's ready, we'll roll with it. Mark, thanks so much, buddy.
Hey, thank you. It's nice not having to host. I can just kind of sit back. You toss me the softballs, and
thought you might like it.
Great, man. We should do this more often.
Yeah. All right.
We're going to. Spoiler alert. We're going to. No, I appreciate it, man. It's been great having you. We're so happy with your addition and just the excitement people have had about it. So.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I'm having a blast.
Good to hear. Yeah, we like I said, we'd love to have you, and it was great. It's great watching practice with you, and then being able to, like, bounce things. Well, what do you see? What do you think? And be able to go and take that to you guys who are watching us now, and kind of go on our live and do that. So appreciate all your efforts so far. We're just getting started, though.
Absolutely, we are. All right, folks. We will see you soon. Have a good one.